presents to you Honest Talk.
Hello folks. Today, Ms. Saiti Devi, founder impact scientist, rural innovator and national brand ambassador Sustainable Development Goals ICTME is going to join us, a gender equality enthusiast who has earlier led the partnerships vertical for a global social startup. Saiti has done her masters in social entrepreneurship and executive education in sustainable business strategies and field study with UNDP in Sri Lanka. So let's begin our talk with Ms. Saiti Devi.
So first of all, ma'am, thank you so much for joining and agreeing to share your thoughts with us. We are extremely very happy to have you for today's talk.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, ma'am. So, ma'am, before I jump to the topic of today's session, ma'am, it's my request to you that tell ma'am, our viewers about Impact Scientist, ma'am. We were eagerly looking to listen about that, how it has started, what ideology it is following, and how it has, ma'am, everything about it.
Sure. So, welcome everyone on the show, and thanks a lot again for having me, Harsh. So, Impact Scientist is a rural innovation platform. Initially, we started writing about gender equality, and then it evolved into an economic empowerment platform for women. And as we were venturing and researching about how can we economically empower women, we found out that most of the women are from the rural India. 80% of our population lives in the rural India. So that is what actually inspired us, me and my husband, to actually move from a metro city to a small village here with a population of 7,000 to 8,000 people. So as a part of this journey, now we are looking at how can we economically empower women at the rural level, at the village level. How can we value add to the skills? How could we bring technology and innovation to not disrupt the villages, but at the same time, how can it bring value addition to the whole rural economy? So I would say that briefly, if I have to explain the viewers about what is Impact Scientist, Impact Scientist is an influencing platform which is working towards empowering rural India on the basis of economically empowering women.
Great, ma'am. So moving to the topic of today's session, which we have chosen is rural empowerment and innovation. So, ma'am, my first question, which I would like to raise it here is, ma'am, whenever we talk about rural empowerment, ma'am, what do you think? What are the essential factors comes here?
So I think in the rural economy, when you're looking at the rural landscape altogether, we have to understand that there are very few people living per each village, but the women here, for example, everybody has a skill, but there are social problems. There are technically issues related to gender equality, access to finance, and availability of education, sanitation issues. So when we are looking at resolving, if an individual is thinking of doing something in rural India, then we need to be prepared to peel off all the layers that everything will be available, right from the connectivity to the digital services. We'll have to look at this whole rural economy as a complete different picture to what we see in the cities. So whenever an individual is thinking about making an impact in rural economy, we must be ready to face the social atrocities and very diverse, multifaceted problems which we might occur, which we don't usually see in a city because things are not processed in a village. Sometimes you'll have to create the system or bring a new system or convince people to accept what you're trying to think for them and for their own sake. Usually village dwellers don't believe anybody easily. So it begins with creating a trust, creating a relationship, becoming a part of their life. and begin with understanding and doing some empathy interviews to understand the supply chain of their life, how it goes, and then we could probably think of solving a problem or bringing a new solution to the problems which are existing here.
All right, ma'am. So, ma'am, as you have, ma'am, worked already on a ground level. So, my next question to you, ma'am, is that what can be the ways to make rural people more independent and empowered?
So, education is the key to, like yesterday, I was doing a field work. We were doing some field work regarding fabric and jewelry. So, there are so many women who are not married yet, but they had to quit their education in the first year of their degree. So, when I asked people on why they have quit their education, their answer was because if we are more educated than this, our parents will not be able to bring a man who is more educated than me. So probably because the parents cannot afford the dowry or afford a marriage of their daughter to a more educated person, women are not allowed to study after a point of time. So, this is one of the majorly important factor, because without education, the skill cannot be used in the right way, because I'm looking at skill on the other side. So, whoever is skilled in the villages, there are people who create saris and who create the traditional foods we eat. There's so many products which we are using today. 45% of the products we use today come from the villages. So, these villages are unable to actually develop infrastructure wise and job wise because the skill is not collaborated with education. So beginning with education, beginning with the refinement of policies in the government schools like free food and free stay, free uniforms, and converting the schools into English medium. The government has been doing so much, but there's a lot of work to be done, because every government school here, we feel that, okay, the government has provided government schools, but the government schools in most of the villages only have class 3 or class 4 or class 5. So everybody has to collectively follow a system, or follow a collaborated framework like sustainable development goals, because everyone cannot say that I want to do this and somebody will come up and say that no, this is the solution, I want to do something else. So we cannot use villages as our pilot models, but we'll probably have to collaborate and think as a community of various professionals have to think about this and come with a solution that will work. And we cannot come here and disrupt the very small lives and make big changes because we feel something is right.
All right, ma'am. Ma'am, as you have already mentioned, education, and of course, education is the most powerful tool. So, ma'am, my next question to you is that, as you have said that mostly the school are up to the class 3 level, ma'am, what do you believe that what are major voids why people are not getting education?
Right. So this is like a loop. I'll take the example of weavers, for example. I went to the weavers family and I partnered with them because I'm coming up with an impact story. So when I asked them, why are you not, so in their case, their son is very educated. So I asked them, why are you not teaching weaving to your children? So when we are working, when I'm working as impact scientist and when I'm going with that perspective, I'm asking the weaver, why are you not passing on your skill? And on the other hand, we are talking about the inaccessibility of education. So what I'm trying to say is, because skills like weaving are coming from hundreds of years, and because we are depending on the products from outside countries, the skill is getting completely diminished. So everybody in that segment is unable to decide whether education is important or skill is important, because skill will give them money. So therefore, some of the families, they're not giving education to their children because they think that skill will give money. Even if they are educated, villages and our rural economies cannot provide jobs to so many educated people. So even if the educated people are unable to be shown as the right examples, only few people are able to go, and that too if we are migrating, urbanization is happening, globalization is happening. So certainly the village dwellers are not, people are unable to believe in the power of education, because ultimately we are creating only engineers and doctors in the lump sum, and we are supposed to be bringing agriculture, skill, hotel management, food, culture, tourism. So these are the kind of sectors which will redirect the belief about education to people, because people think that okay, if my son will go to school, he might have to probably only become an engineer. So if that is possible, we'll give him education. If not, then probably let him go to work, or let him bring some money so that he's at least stable and he can eat, because the priorities will begin from hunger. So the education is the priority, but not as prior as being hungry. So the priority of the problems might change, the importance we give to education also. It depends on the situation of an individual.
All right, ma'am, you have given a very wonderful answer, covered all the aspects related to it. So, ma'am, my next question to you is that what do you believe, what are the ways by which we can empower rural women?
So, when I think of rural women, the first thing that comes into my mind is they're not allowed to get out of their houses. They're not allowed to, explore. They're not allowed to self-discover. So what happens is they have a lot of skill. They're ready to learn anything you teach. So it is possible to train. It is possible to value add to the existing skill they have. It is possible to empower them by, telling their stories in a more impactful way. It is possible to empower them by empowering the tourism industry, because people can cook, homestays can increase, and rural India is very beautiful. So that way I see a lot of potential for rural India and rural travel to bring empowerment to the rural economy, because when it is possible to empower rural women, to let them stay in their environments, because ultimately you need to show their families, make the family and their ecosystem believe that okay, they have brought a solution. So through this, the woman is working inside the house and she is able to bring money that is improving the quality and the standard of the living for the family. So that will give the first-hand belief to the husband. Or else what happens is, sometimes we give them free money. So the husband will be waiting outside the government office when she will get the Dwakra money or when she'll get that 5,000 rupees, and he can take it. So if there is an alcoholism problem, he will probably take it and drink it out. So when we can empower women by giving them resources and raw materials and teaching them skill rather than just giving the money, because they don't have the power. All the women in the houses don't have the power to decide what to do with the money we give. So financial empowerment will not just resolve the problem. There is a certain amount of, we need to create awareness. We need to tell them, this is the structure. We have created a market. You do this and we'll take and market your, so they have to become a part of our system, but they still have to remain in their homes. And then the next step will be, when they feel empowered, half of them will say, no, we are ready to come out because you have shown us a way, we'll do it. So that is how we will be able to create, women leaders who will become the voice for the rest of the community. So this work has to be done first, and then we can come up with numerous ideas and business solutions.
Great, ma'am. I have studied or read somewhere that people believing in giving education in their means if they have girl and boy both, they give a good education to boys only, not girls. Ma'am, is it still common or going on, or it is totally vanished now?
So it is principally very unique to the family, because I have seen many families in the urban structures, like in the cities, who have prioritized to give education to the man of the family. So, but there could be some probably people in the rural, like who will prioritize to give education to their daughters also. So it depends on the political leaders, the impact they're creating on the villages, the sarpanches, the every part of who is voted, the administrative system is also responsible for these calls to be made.
All right, ma'am. If we are talking about their development, and one question which has come here, that, and also we need to understand, ma'am, what are their problems which are common to almost everyone, means have these type of problems.
The net income of the family is very low, and if the family is living a below poverty line life, what happens is, if they want to send the girl to school, not just money, but say for example security and what the society will think, for example, becomes a big question. So if there is a small problem caused to the security or the image of the girl, the whole community around them makes it very difficult that, was education important? So people cannot afford that much money to be spent on security, to be spent on taking risks of, usually people can only invest on, even like you take a farmer, he can invest exactly on the basis of what he can get back. So that really translates into the life of somebody who's living a life below poverty line. It is hard because they want the girl to get married quickly, because it's hard to keep her safe at home for them, because they usually go out for work. They have to go in the morning. Some, the daily wage laborers go to work at 3:34 in the morning, and they don't know when they might return, and what will be the social condition or what will be their economic condition for that day. So they prefer the girl to be married and safe with somebody, rather than, taking a risk and putting everybody's life at stake and then sending her to school or college. So availability of infrastructure is important, but also providing a wholesome atmosphere for the girls to go is also very important.
All right, ma'am. Ma'am, one question which I would like to put it here is that, ma'am, government every year means release some of the policies or many policies. Ma'am, is it working fine on the ground level, or is it still on just paper only?
Right. So I will definitely say that whatever government has done, say for example, one of my best friend was studying, and she she got advantage of the scheme of the government, and she could complete the education, and today she has a job and she's supporting her family and she's financially independent. So that is a success story which I have literally seen. Like, there was a dependence on the money which came from the government for her to be leading a life today. So I would say that because it is indefinite to say that the government has to resolve the complete problem, but I'll definitely say that the change has begun. More and more people, even the private sector has, actively, after the CSR has, activated on high levels. So the private sector is very active. The collaborations are happening between NGOs and private sector and individuals and the governments. So now I can say that yes, the policies are they are able to be implemented in a more effective way, and there are true stories that have translated into wonderful lives, because of the schemes. And we have a big population to deal with in our country, so we cannot be impatient, and that is why more and more of us have to be the influencers for the government to be able to perform better.
All right, ma'am. Ma'am, my next question to you: what can be the best ways to achieve a sustainable rural development?
So, I think relocation, the retainment of talent is very important. So, if somebody is getting educated on a rural level, so have you ever heard somebody say that I aspire to become a farmer? So, unless that does not happen, how will sustainable development happen? So, today I'm fighting for weavers because out of 25,000 weavers, not even a single weaver is training their sons or daughters to become weavers because they don't believe that the skill will give them any money. So the same way in the next 50 years, we might be, fighting for farmers and their sons. We have so much of agricultural land and the whole economy of India depends on agriculture, and we don't hear anyone saying, I aspire to be a farmer. So the most sustainable word in India is agriculture. And through agriculture, we have so many other allied and the auxiliaries of agriculture. The industries and the food processing units, the packaging unit, the complete. So there is so much of sustainability which is attached to only agriculture. So I feel that agriculture and skill are the backbone of rural development. And for sustainable rural development, we need educated talent to retain and live here so that they can really understand, because unless we live here, we cannot see the real rural India, and unless we live with the people, we cannot understand. So sustainable development needs love for agriculture from each and everyone in this country, and we all need to respect the skill. Believe that India is a skill-based economy.
All right, ma'am. You made very good point that rarely people means if we ask what do you want to become in future, rarely people say that I want to become a farmer or say weaver. So, ma'am, my next question, which I was thinking before also to ask you, and eagerly looking for that answer, ma'am. What made you inspired to go into this?
I think my childhood visits to my grandmother's house. I think that's the first memory which comes into my mind, because whenever I used to come here, I used to feel that why am I there? Why do I have to leave from here? Because it's so beautiful. And there are so many problems which I can solve by talking. My education should probably be useful to such a beautiful place. So, and also my husband, he's a doctor. So he believes that, all the best talent in our country is in, best doctors in our country are living in the metro cities. So, and most of the population is in the rural areas. So that is why if something happens to somebody in the village, they have to travel for 5 to 6 hours sometimes to get basic good treatment from a nice professional doctor. So I think it was a combined, as I told you, it was a part of the journey of Impact Scientist. When I was working on gender equality, I thought I should be in the city because I felt there is still a lot of inequality. So I thought I want to do influencing and blogging and writing there. But then when I started looking at more and more women, I was more interested towards skill, and skill resides in the villages. So both of us, we collectively thought that I'll bring women economic empowerment here, and he wanted to bring quality healthcare to rural India. So he's setting up a clinic over here, and I'm going to continue to work from here. So that is how we were, collectively inspired for this journey to take this step.
It's really, ma'am, great to listen, and also I think we all need to learn from you. So, ma'am, it was a great interaction with you. Also, it was a healthy discussion with you over the topic. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining and giving your important time. We look forward to conduct more and more sessions with you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining.
Thank you so much for having me, Harsh. Thanks a lot, viewers.
Thank you.